Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here on this page. If you're here, it's because you're interested in learning more about the Lumen Project. So Jeff, with that, welcome. Hello. Hello, sir.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Yeah, I think we just talked through some of the Lumen Project and what we're up to.
Yeah. So, I mean, we started this group. I started the group a while ago, but we've been kind of reforming and reformulating and going through all sorts of stuff over the last few months together. And feels like we've got everything kind of figured out now. And that feels good.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's the nature of iteration. When you're creating something, there's always the process of iterating it till you start to find what works. And
Yeah. And
yeah.
I know like people over the last few weeks, like my friends have been, they've been curious, like, what are you up to? What is this is what I keep getting, the question of what is this?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
I think we are going to answer that today in this video.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think a good place to start for what it is to start to look at why we created it, right? So if I think about it's a community for men, right? A band of brothers, a group of men who are leaning on one another for the things in life they want to create with their life. But if we look at where most men get stuck, I think that's a good place to start.
Sorry, I'm adjusting our view. There we go.
Yeah, so if we think about like where most men get stuck, I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah, so I know I can speak. I can speak for myself and a lot of my friends. Like, there's a background to this, and I think if you go on our website and find the post like how it all began, that'll kind of give you the good overview, because that story in itself is 20 minutes or so. But long story short, I was going through some stuff in my life. I had opened a business. I had to close the business, unfortunately, and not of my own doing, but I was left just feeling really, really lost. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had to go back to my previous job and kind of, I didn't really have to beg them to come back, but pretty damn close. And I had this dream of what I wanted to do, and I went out and did it. And then it wasn't like I failed, but that's how I felt. I felt like a failure. I felt lost, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do in life. I was kind of just waking up every day and going through the motions and trying to figure things out. And now when I talk to friends, friends in my life, they're coming to me and they're like, hey man, you've been through some stuff, and I wake up every day and I'm with my wife and my kids and everything's good, but I feel like I'm kind of just going through the motions and I don't really know what to do with my life.
Yeah. I think that's a rite of passage, by the way. We've talked about this. I feel like a couple of years ago, I went through my midlife crisis. I feel like I was a full stop on my business because I had been 20 years grinding for what? I mean, I think when you get to that, it's an existential, what am I even doing this for? And you can't really like tell that to your family. And it's not like your friends are like, oh yeah, man, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like,
Yeah.
And it wasn't even like I wanted somebody to commiserate in my misery. Right. I'm not looking for a pity party. But I don't even have words to share what the meltdown was. Like, I don't even know. I just know I'm not doing this anymore. And that's a really hard place to be.
Yeah, it was, it came for me, it was like, I wasn't happy with myself, wasn't happy with the position I'm in anymore. We've talked about, like, I went out and bought a bunch of courses. I was like, oh, maybe I'll do this. Oh, maybe I'll do this.
Yep.
Oh, maybe I'll go buy this car. Like,
Yeah.
The ex-girlfriend said I was going through a midlife crisis. And the big realization I had was maybe I was, and who cares? I needed to figure it out. I needed to figure it out on my own. And so I bought a bunch of courses. I bought a bunch of books. I went and bought a crazy sports car. Eventually came around to the point where I was like, yeah, this isn't helping either. Like, it's this never ending search. Right.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think that's the power of having a place to talk about or having a place to process the things you're noticing, like that. You could get to a place where you're reflecting on the ingredients, the causes, the triggers, the thing. Like, if you don't process it, then what happens is you'll find sideways ways to try to scratch the itch, right? Like, I'm going to try a different relationship. I'm going to try a different car. I'm going to try a different career. And none of that is the causing of the issue. There's something wanting to be born in you. There's a bigger purpose inviting you to come play. And if you don't see that, then you're going to feel it can be scary. I don't think that's a very popular word for men to use, like, oh, I'm scared. But like when your identity has been built around hustle, grind, or whatever you've been doing to feel your sense of status, and that gets called into question, all of a sudden you're like, I don't know who I am without that.
Yeah, it
That's
is.
a scary place to be.
It is mentally, it's a dark place too. Like I went through that, and
Mhm.
luckily had a good support group around me at the time to kind of,
Yep.
let's say, pull me out of that, but help pull me out of it for sure.
Right.
And eventually what happened was I found something that did kind of click, and it was a community, I kind of stumbled upon. I had a friend that had built something out, and he was like, hey, you should check this out. We do a weekly call. We've got our stories that we do a little workout thing. And so it was a fun group. It was interesting. I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And what I very quickly found was like that the community that they had built was what I needed. And I didn't know that, again,
Yeah.
I didn't know what I needed. Like
Mm,
luckily just kind of stumbled into it.
mm.
And
That's a really good point. Well, I think that's part of the frustration can be if you don't have a place to process it, then you can't really iterate. You can't, kind of like you're saying, like if you didn't have that and you were just left to sort of journal about it or take walks in nature and try to figure that out, like it doesn't really work that well because it swirls in your head. Like you can't see through your own fishbowl. Like you're just, so the challenge is if you don't have a place to process, and there aren't many places that are very safe for men to process, then you kind of get stuck in your head and your thoughts about it.
yep. And like I said, luckily I was able to find that, and I kind of figured out, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool to have other people to talk to and have
Yeah.
some engagement. And then I started, it wasn't like I created this new vision of what I wanted my life to be all of a sudden, but over time, this process helped, and the community helped. And it felt like all of a sudden it's like, oh, I have a little, like I felt better about my life and better about myself, and just kind of, it
Yeah.
was like a buildup, right? It was, and
Yeah.
and the funny thing was, after talking to the guy that created that group, like he didn't mean to do that. It was just kind of something that we got together. We actually got together it was a writing group.
Mm.
So every day every day they gave us a topic to like write about. And then the following month we added this workout component, and, just kind of built into this thing. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, this is really cool. It's a cool community. And we kind of have this like purpose and mission
Yeah.
now. And
Yeah.
just like I said, kind of random and out of the blue, but
Right. Right. Well, I think that's I think on the other side of this feeling lost, there is purpose. I think there's a sense of vision, like for me, it was my life's work type of vision. Like, what am I willing to give the rest of my life for? And I just, up until that point, that meltdown, my life had really been built around goals that sound like lifestyle goals, right?
mhm.
Laptop entrepreneur goals, um, get a chiseled body goals, all the things that I felt like culturally as a man, I'm supposed to want. Oh, this is what I think as a man I'm supposed to do. So a lot of, from my 20s to my 40s, a lot of my goals and my vision looked like lifestyle goals and vision.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
on
it's,
the other side of my meltdown, it was very much more life's work. What's my purpose? What am I going to do on this planet?
yeah, it's like, it's what we're told we want or we need. We're told we need this. We're told we want it by society, by our parents, by marketing. It's
Right.
like it's the world we live in now. But and that kind of goes back to that mindset
Right.
thing, and
Yeah.
figuring out, what, like you said, what kept me there. What was the, I think we call it the limiting beliefs. Like I had a
Yeah.
ton of limiting beliefs
Yeah.
at one point, and start just chipping away at those one at a time, and
Yeah.
getting to the point where I kind of broke free from those. Um,
Yeah. Can you remember what some of those were? Like what some of the
yeah, it
old
was just this feeling of like I was good. I fell back on a job, and I made decent money. It wasn't necessarily what I loved and what I wanted to do, but it was good enough. I
right.
felt like I didn't really need to make any changes.
Yeah.
Just didn't feel in
Right.
alignment with what I wanted to be doing, but I didn't know what that was.
Mm.
And I can't, I'm looking back at that point, and like even like at the time, my boss was like one of my best friends. I couldn't go to him and be like, hey man, this isn't what I want to do, but I don't really know. Like I couldn't have that conversation with him.
Right.
I
Right.
tried to have it with my parents, and they're just, they kind of
Mm,
didn't get it.
mhm.
They're in a different spot and a different way of thinking. And
Yeah.
so in the end, it was kind of just like, I can figure this out. I'll figure it out. And that's what I kept telling myself. And that's why I kept buying courses and buying books and buying all of
Yeah.
these things, and
Right.
I'll figure it out.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
that did not work very well, by the way.
Yeah. I had the same sort of thing. Like I'm a very independent thinker. I have been historically. So my limiting belief was I will figure this out. Nobody's going to figure this out for me. I will figure this out. Now, I think that in some level that's true. Like we'll all just figure it out. Like don't give up, keep going. You'll figure it out. But I think the flip side of that is what I missed was the value and the benefit of others in a similar spot or walking in a similar direction. Like what's my life's work, that together there's a sounding board. I didn't think of that. So the mindset that was keeping me stuck was really a lot of this solo, I'm alone, I'm going to do it myself kind of a thing, you know?
Yeah, and that's what kind of this like light bulb aha moment for me was. I get in this community, I didn't know any of them, and any of the people. And I think at the time there were like 97 men and women in this community, and I didn't know any of them other than my buddy that had started it. And just being surrounded by a bunch of new people was scary. I'm very introverted, even in that sense. And
Yeah.
I get the group introduction and I'm kind of going along, but at the same time, I got this like big wave of calm, because as I'm telling my story through the storytelling stuff that we had to do, the daily story we had to write, like I'm reading other people's stories and I'm writing mine, and I'm like, holy shit, there's a bunch of people in here that are going through the same thing.
Yep.
And all of a sudden I'm just like, oh, I've found my people.
Yeah. Right.
And I had this like big wave of calm come over, and I was like, this, like their stories were resonating with me. I was like, I've been there before. Then I started chiming in. I mean, this is where the community kind of really kicked into overdrive, was like, people were asking questions, and I was like, oh, I've been through something similar. I don't necessarily have the answer for you, but here's what I did, or here's
Yeah.
what I went through.
I love that. Yeah.
And we're doing that with each other, and by doing that, it just kind of lifts all of that weight off your shoulders, and
Yeah.
it felt so good. And that was where the idea for this group actually came from, was in sharing those stories publicly. I had people start coming to me and saying, man, what you're talking about is really, really resonating. Can I meet with you like once a week? I mean, I've had people ask if we could do coaching. I've had all sorts of stuff. And it actually stemmed from like the darker side of things. I had some people that were like, hey man, I was thinking about committing suicide at one point. I read what you've been going through and realized that I'm not alone.
Wow.
And that there's light at the end of that tunnel.
Wow.
Hence the name Lumen Project, because Lumen is the light. So so that was where this community actually came from, was that whole process that I just described is where this group was born from. And it was nice to be around other people that, we were all going through the same stuff at various times.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I think that's a good place to think, if I start thinking from not, I'm going to figure this out, but what resonates with me, instead of like, what's the right answer, or, what makes me a lot of money, but you start to listen to your intuition, or the things that really resonate with you. And then look for who else is on this path. I think now you start to have the ingredients to really step into something that feels meaningful and fulfilling and worth the rest of your life.
Yeah. And for me, that was, like I said, this group, becoming kind of a life coach for men. And I've coached a bunch of friends over the years, because I mean, all of this happened back in like 2018. So in the last few years, I've done some group coaching stuff. I've helped friends for free.
Yeah.
Some people that I don't know, like, friends are like, hey, you should talk to this guy. He's gone through something like this. And I've met with him and talked him through this. And the cool thing about it, and you just mentioned the word path. And I love the idea that like, I'm not going to have all of the answers. I might just be a little bit further on that path towards whatever it is than you are. And so if I can help you follow that path,
Yeah.
then we're good. Like we're on the same path, trying to get somewhere. You
Yeah,
said
and then that's the cool thing also about, I think about having a peer group is that, you know, and you listening to this might be further down the path in some ways than Jeff and I are. Like what makes this, I think, unique compared to other masterminds, communities, things you can be a part of in the world is it's a peer-to-peer thing. You know, there's so much of our world that loves the certainty that people who beat their chest and stand on pillars and say, I have figured out life's secrets, you know, I think that that's not actually how that works. And I prefer a more humble approach where it's like, I have some things that life has taught me. You have some things that life has taught you. And together we can walk each other home on this path of purpose. And
Yep.
it's the space that creates the change, not Jeff or Chris. It's the process. I mean, it might be a good time just to sort of share the process, but it's the
Yeah.
process that does the heavy lifting, not Chris and Jeff, because Chris and Jeff are so great.
Right. Yeah. Like we have a method that we
Yeah.
have used to kind of,
Yep.
and it took a while for us to even kind of gel this
Codify.
together.
Right. Yeah.
But after talking about it for, 10 weeks or however long it's taken us, it's like, well, here's what we both did, and here's what my other friends have done. And like, this seems to be a good process or method or framework. And it
Yep.
seems to work pretty much every time in
It's a
various.
virtuous cycle. I mean, there's never a time you would outgrow this process because it will support you and go with you for the rest of your life as you pursue your purpose.
Yep.
It's going to sound overly simple when we say it, but the reality is it's that you're in a space with others who are moving through that process together. That is where the magic happens.
Yeah. And we keep it simple on purpose, but
Yeah.
sometimes more simple is better. And in this
Yep.
case, it's there are three components to it.
Yep.
Some components inside of each of those, but at the end of the day, it's three things that we just cycle through.
Yeah. Should we share those? Like
Yeah, we probably should. So reflection, like it all starts with reflection. Like we need to know where we are, where we're going, where we're wanting to go. Out of that reflection comes this vision, going more so where we want to go.
Yep.
And then we create this vision and try to set some goals and do some things around that, and then we commit to doing it.
Yeah.
And then we generally, if we've done a good job of the other two and done a good job of the goal setting and the framework within that, when we commit, we hit those goals.
Yep.
And then we start the cycle over again. So it's this never ending journey. Then
or
we
even if we
reflect on
don't
what
hit
we
those
did.
goals, right?
Yeah, I
It
mean,
still brings us back to reflection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then we reflect on it and we say, what could we do better? What do I need to do better? Or hey, that worked really well. This time I'm gonna do this, and this time I'm gonna do that, or combination of the two, whatever it may be. And then it's just this ongoing journey, ongoing cycle. And I joked earlier about the people calling it the hero's journey. That's just the terminology that a lot of these groups use. I'm not trying to be a hero to anybody at this point. Like I don't need to be a hero. It's just this life journey, the finding purpose, and that is just an ongoing thing for me to live my best possible life.
Yeah.
I just need to keep iterating.
Right. I think all we're doing here in this community is curating a space for this kind of process and this kind of conversation to happen. Right. It's like, could you find some of these kinds of things other places? Maybe. But if you're listening to this and I know, especially in the space of men's groups, there are different flavors and personalities. So, if you're listening to this and you like the vibe that Jeff and I have, and that he and I have done some codifying of our own processes in life to come up with structure so that it's not like a shit show where you show up and nobody's leading anything and that there's actual direction and momentum, but it's simple. All we're doing here is creating space for you to envision, to find your purpose, and then to start walking that purpose home as others are doing the same. Like that's all we're doing here. It's not complicated. It's not complicated at all, but it's the process and being in the space with others doing the same thing that makes it work.
Yep. I'm a big fan of simplification.
Yep.
And efficiencies.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, I think as far as like, might be helpful just to know a little bit about like format. How does it work? The intention is to meet weekly on Zoom. So it's virtual. You don't have to be in the same area Jeff and I are in.
Yep.
In fact, Jeff and I are not in the same area.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so we're both West Coast. We do, right now it's Tuesday meetings
Yep.
for an hour or so, different topics, different formats. So kind of rotate through those, and then a little bit of flexibility. So as people come up with questions or issues or whatever we need to address, we can do that as well.
Yeah. There's no curriculum in the sense that there's no homework. You're never behind. If you skip a week, you don't, you're not like, oh crap, I'm behind. So what's the point? This is really about showing up in the presence of each other and having conversations that actually move the needle for the things we're committed to. So that's what it is. And that happens by meeting together. So, while you could miss a week, right? It's not like you take attendance.
Yeah.
The value, the needle gets moved by being in the conversation with others that are doing the same thing.
I keep laughing because in that group that I referenced a few times, if you missed a day, you got kicked out.
Wow.
And this was $300 a month. And so it was kind of one of those things where it was like, that was the accountability part. And we touch on that a little bit, but the accountability is a huge thing. But there's a level of accountability. Like, I want to be accountable to you guys. I want you guys to be accountable for me.
Yeah.
But if somebody misses a day, I'm not going to be like, oh, you're out of the group.
Right. Yeah.
And also it's not $300 a month.
Exactly right. Yeah. No, it's good. So, I mean, and it doesn't need to be more complicated than that. Like, there will be other things that Jeff and I can introduce as we move along, but that's sort of the gist and super simple format of what we're doing. So,
Yep.
So, yeah. Any
check
final
out the
thoughts?
web. Oh, well,
Yes. Or final thoughts? Yeah. Final thoughts.
Yeah. So final thoughts. I was just going to say, check out, we're going to have more information on the website, obviously some frequently asked questions. There's going to be the application form. So, if it sounds like a good fit for you guys, and like Chris said, if you're vibing with our vibe, then fill out the little form. One of us will get back to you within a day or two and kind of go over the next steps. And, it's not like we have a big process. We do want to keep the group to a certain size and to a certain like vibe, I guess is a good word for it. So So we ask a few questions on that form to kind of get to know you a little bit better, and then go from there. So fill that form out if you're interested, and that's kind of it.
I think that's it. Perfect. Awesome, Jeff.
Another
Thanks everybody. We look forward to meeting you and going from there.
Yep. Thanks, guys.